Thank you all for being here this morning, and we hope you enjoyed the programming yesterday. Now, Amy Stepanovich is going to kick off the second day here.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up on day 2 of our conference on technology, optimism, and pessimism. We're really happy to have you back. For those who need it, there's quite a bit of coffee available. We'll keep you nice and caffeinated and awake throughout the rest of the morning and into lunch. So yesterday we kicked off with some really interesting discussions. Representative Joe Neguse was here to start our day, bringing up themes, very lighthearted, things about climate change, the future of democracy, the impact of tech on vulnerable populations, which was a really good frame for what could be has been a really fascinating conversation. We moved into our optimism panel, talking about really interesting technologies, 5G, machine learning, cryptography. The conversation about Bellingcat was something I found really interesting. It wasn't only about the technologies that we were discussing, it was about how people were coming together and using those technologies for positive outcomes, in this case to investigate misinformation, which led into, I think somebody on Twitter called it the most pessimistic optimism panel they had ever heard, despite all of that, which led into our pessimism panel, which was interesting because even though we did discuss on that panel things like not only how technology is impacting vulnerable populations, but how technology is actually leaving certain populations totally out of the conversation. But it also, we challenged the speakers to come up with what they thought were the most powerful and positive uses of tech. So we ended our pessimistic optimism panel with an optimistic pessimism panel, which led into a really great discussion, I think you all agree, by Phil Weiser about the future, although the conversation really ended up being about both the past and the present as well. Historian Patty Limerick provided a really great counter to that conversation. Casey Fiesler from the Information School was able to talk about what was going on in the world today. And Carl Schroeder, who is a futurist and author, really provided some great insights on world building. And if you haven't read any of his stories or his book that he was promoting that came out last summer, I highly encourage you to do so. They have some really interesting factoids in them. And I believe one of his short stories is still kind of my touch point for how augmented reality will be used and will likely be used in the future. So really fascinating information and material there. And then I think the most tweeted panel of the conversation yesterday was our legal debate. I don't know if Pierre DeRise is in the room, back in the back. Masterful job leading a really wonderful debate. I've never seen a debate start that close. I have it on authority that Paul Ohm was really confident that he was going to get 96% of the audience on his side from the first poll. However, it ended up being split 46-54, and then you moved into 50-50 after the debate. So really strong feelings on both sides of the aisle, although I also have been told that the poll was limited to the first 100 participants. So we'll have to fix that in the future, but congratulations to everybody involved and everybody who participated in that poll. Thank you. And that led us into our entrepreneurial conversation. How is business acting as a force for good in the world? And it was really interesting to hear all of the conversations about the good things companies were doing or could be doing in this space to move toward a more positive society. And then leading into Ann Toth's wonderful keynote. I can't tell if she's in the room as well. I knew she was sitting in the back. I said she was the person in the back of the room. Talking about kind of where technology could go, the wonderful things she's seen in her work, from the World Economic Forum to Slack, Yahoo, Google, as well as a few, I think, words of warning on things that we should be talking about and policy conversations to be having. Will lead us very, very nicely into today. This is our Solutions Day. We're going to engage quite in depth on identifying kind of the problems from the last day of conversations. Where are the things that we think that we can identify themes? And we have a great panel for you that's going to walk us through this. And then from those themes, can we identify next steps? Ways to move the conversation forward, things that we can do maybe together now, either to plan for the future or things that we can't plan for, which is a really great piece of this conversation as well. I think yesterday one of the themes that came out was that it's really hard to figure out what's going to happen next, and it's harder to plan for it. So one of the solutions may be that there is no solution, and I'll be interested to hear how the panelists deal with that. However, we're starting with a keynote from Commissioner O'Reilly at 9 o'clock. And before that happens, I gave a lot of thank yous last night. And inevitably, anybody who watched the Oscars will know you inevitably miss a few people. And one of the people I missed, I'm going to call out right now because I walked off the stage and immediately was like, what did I do? It was the first words out of my mouth. And the person I missed was Dean Geminiah from the law school, who's been just an incredible friend to Silicon Flatirons, both in my tenure as well as prior to the beginning of my start time. He's really come full force on entrepreneurship and tech as a something that the law school contributes and a really powerful program that we provide here. And I'm grateful for him, both for that support as well as he was out last night at our celebration. He came to our speaker dinner, and he's been just a great mentor and friend. So I want to now remedy my horrible oversight from last night and give him great thanks for the work that he's done with the law school and with Silicon Flatirons. And so in about 5 minutes or so, we're going to come up and introduce the commissioner. I'll give you a little bit of time to kind of settle into your seats and get ready in the morning, get your last cup of coffee before we start. And at 9 o'clock, we're going to come back and hear what I'm sure are really riveting remarks from FCC Commissioner O'Reilly, who we're grateful to have here. Thank you very much.